Welcome to the Business Development Podcast, brought to you by the Global Business Development Association, delivering the strategies and tactics to boost your career and corporate growth.
Hello, BD pros, and welcome to the Global Business Development Association podcast called What is Business Development? And today we have a great book author specifically writing about business development tactics for the legal profession, but there's oftentimes ways to apply those very niche vertical tactics across the entire BD profession. What works in some verticals works great in other verticals as well. And this will be a lot of fun to learn how attorneys successfully grow their businesses, but you'll also learn how you can grow yours. The book is called Rainmaker Power Moves, the attorney's playbook for building a book of business. And it helps attorneys unlock their potential and become the rainmaker their legal career deserves. And it's a dynamic guide that's a blueprint for mastering business development and cultivating a thriving practice. Inside these pages of the book, you'll discover the tools and strategies to transform legal expertise into powerful presence that attracts new clients and turns existing clients into loyal advocates. Folks, there's that word, advocacy. Again, that's pulled right from chapter 2 of the Business Development Body of Knowledge and the ultimate definition of business development. And the textbook definition of business development is called customer and community advocacy that creates corporate growth. And we see that word prominently displayed here in the Rainmaker Power Moves book that's just jam-packed with a lot of great actionable tactics and tips for attorneys to use in becoming rainmakers. And what I really liked about this book is you can read it if you're a busy attorney or a busy business developer, and it's very accessible and actionable. You read quickly through the chapters, and then there are some great summaries and actionable functions that you can take right as soon as you read that section of the book. And then the appendices has some great worksheets for you to then go a little bit deeper into those business development tactics. And again, everything in this book is action-oriented. And the action-oriented author has done a lot of work in this profession in business development in the legal world. Our guest is Sheila Murphy, and she's a certified executive coach specializing in career advancement, leadership development, and business growth. Her mission is to empower legal professionals, general counsels, legal executives, and law firm attorneys to achieve transformational success in their careers, compensation, and confidence. She provides personalized coaching and strategic consulting, and she helps her clients master the skills needed to become impactful leaders and rainmakers. And she's here to give you that coaching and strategic advice with us today on the show. Sheila Murphy, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here today.
So Sheila, tell us a little bit, how did you get into the business development profession?
Well, it sort of isn't your common path. I was an in-house counsel who actually purchased a lot of legal services. And through doing that, I developed relationships with a lot of senior law firm partners who are hoping to develop business. And then in 2008, the economic downturn occurred. And it had a really hard impact on the legal industry, and especially those attorneys at law firms. And what I saw at that point is that the attorneys who did not master business development and own their own book of clients were really at the mercy of those who did. They had been sort of told, you can be the service partner, you'll make a lot of money, but you don't have to do that icky thing about developing business. But when the economics changed, so did the environment. And so a lot of these service partners found themselves losing compensation, losing titles, and in some cases, losing jobs. as a result of this, I sort of saw it as my mission, because I was involved with a lot of bar associations, to help educate people on the ramifications of not owning your book of business, and from a client's perspective, how to develop that book of business. Because I have seen, since I'm a purchaser, I've seen people do really well at it, and I've seen major fails.
Yeah, that's a really intriguing career pathway, Sheila, because you were a buyer of the services. So you saw firsthand different styles, different tactics in real life, as opposed to being outside counsel, where you're actually selling the services. So that's a really unique perspective, because you're not just seeing one or two other folks in your firm apply those tactics. You're seeing dozens, if not more, selling directly to you. So that's great. You knew what worked, what didn't work, and so that's really intriguing, and a very selfless effort on your part to help attorneys be successful in their career. And a big part of that success is defined by their ability to be a rainmaker, to do business development effectively. You know, my wife just finished law school after a full career. And as she brought the syllabus home the first day, and I said, "Now tell me, when do they give you the class on business development?" She says, "There are no classes on business development." And she just received her degree and passed the bar, and none of it was related to business development. And I'm just thinking, this is ridiculous. I mean, this profession is so defined. Your success is defined by your ability to grow business, and none of that is trained in law school, which probably explains why there are a number of top-notch
And
folks
I will
like.
say, I have had clients come in who've made partner, but were told their whole careers, don't worry about the business development. And then, like, on day one, they said, well, you need to bring in about $2 million this year. And they were like, what? They had not been prepared in any way for that conversation. And so I don't think the legal profession does a good job about the business of law. It's changing a little bit, but it's not caught up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad to see that folks are not trained adequately, at least in the early stages of their career. But fortunately, they have experts like you who can. And folks, this is common, not just in the legal profession, in so many professions, particularly professional services. But I just ran a post last week that was a poll on LinkedIn, and I said, okay, what are the top ways to get promoted or get a pay raise? And there were three choices. Either you could find cost savings, you could create a new process in your business, or you could generate revenue. And I think it was like 90% of people said, generate revenue, find new business. That is the way you get promoted. So this is not unique to law firms. If you run a P&L, if you're an operations, a PM or something like that in a corporation, you're expected to oftentimes bring in revenue. So I'm so excited about talking about this in the book. And so let me ask you, what caused you to write the book itself? I mean, you've been doing this since 2008 as a consultant and advisor. So why the book? Why now?
Having worked with a lot of attorneys over the last number of years, one of the biggest things is time pressure, and a simple, pragmatic guide that will enable them to sort of take the steps to move forward. And so a lot of people felt really time pressured. How do I find the time to work with a coach? How do I think about doing things differently? And so I wanted like a guide for those people who just felt so constrained by time that they could do it on their own at a pace. And that the book, as what you've said a number of times, really focuses on actionable steps that you could take. And it's really a roadmap to start you through. So as you're trying to do it, it makes sense. It doesn't seem overwhelming. You can stop at any point and then pick it up. So I wanted to reach more people at this time, especially because the economy the last few years has been a little rocky or uncertain, more than rocky, I would say, where people aren't sure where it's going, what's happening. And so I think in times like this, I wanted to reach more people so that they could have greater control over sort of their compensation and their courage.
Yeah, and I like how you started the book with, let me just quote it real quickly. You say, consider this. If you are a senior attorney, as part of the transfer process, the potential new firm will ask you to fill in a lateral partner question, an LPQ, even if you're not at the partner level. And you, the author, you've seen firms asking your clients about their business development efforts, plans, and results. So if you're in a firm, you need to have this capability. If you want to move to a new firm and progress your career, you'll definitely be asked about this, your ability to bring in revenue, right?
It's constant. And then if for some reason the other part of your people you're working with at the firm leave you behind, which I've also seen, the firm where you are is going to say, well, where's the business going to come from? And I've seen people have to panic and like do things they've never done before in a couple of months to try to build that platform, which, as you know, doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, that is probably a horrible scenario to be in, where your rainmaker leaves and now you need to generate you need to be the rainmaker. All right, well, let's add some water and create some instant rainmaking with your new book. And let's talk about your top 3 tactics from your book, Sheila. What's the number one takeaway? Now, folks, remember, there are 12 chapters in this book. It's all laid out sequentially in a logical fashion from start to finish. So it's a very logical step process through the customer journey and the customer life cycle. And so, it's tough to get all 12 into the top 3 here, Sheila. But what's number 1?
Okay. What I would say, because I think it's really the foundation, is understanding your ideal clients, which is something that lawyers and I think other professionals have a problem with now and then, because we all have this fear, FOMO, fear of missing out on something. So no one wants to sort of narrow their niche, even though the niche is where the riches are. And if you're too broad, you're not speaking to anyone. And so for me, I really try to have people dig into a couple of who are their core client groups. And a client doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be just the end user. It can be if you get work through accountants or other larger law firms. Understanding who those ideal clients are allows you to really effectively and intentionally and strategically plan your business development. And by this, I mean you're planning your branding, your content, your networking, so that you're focusing your energy, your time, and to a certain extent, your money in the right places. So that's really important to me.
Yeah, I love that step number 1, folks. And the most prominent thing, and this is very common in the authors we've interviewed on this podcast. So many start with this number 1 foundational step: identify your ideal customer profile. It will allow you to increase your probability of winning the business, and it will increase your efficiency. Stop chasing prospects that are not a good fit for your firm. And, when I say good fit, that also means, are they good customers? Not only are they good prospects, but will they be good customers that ultimately will become your raving fans and become your advocates, providing referrals to you? So let's just dig a little bit deeper into that one, Sheila, because I know there are many ways to identify your ideal customer profile, but you talked about the networking piece. So I thought that's pretty intriguing, and how you're talking about engaging your network of connections, accountants, maybe M&A advisors, financial advisors, that sort of thing. How do you go about collaborating with your network of fellow experts to really craft your ideal customer profile? How do you do that?
Okay. Well, I think it starts with when you're thinking about those relationships and referral business. You want to be, and I hate to use the term, but it works, fishing in the right pond. So you need to understand if you're trying to broaden it, your network, where do these people hang out? So where do they read? What do they read? What conferences do they go to? What organizations do they belong to? How can I meet these people and begin to cultivate that relationship? So that to me is where you start, is like understanding where to meet people. And then once you meet them, what's important to them, both on a business and personal level. What are the things that they want to hear about, know about you, so they can start to know, like, and trust you, so that they feel that you could be a good fit to bring in on to refer to one of their businesses or whatever, one of their clients. They need to understand that. So you need to both understand their needs, the end client's needs, and demonstrate that. And I'm a huge believer also in storytelling as a way of solidifying those relationships and showing what you do. Because when you show stories and tell stories, it's really evidence. I can walk up to you at a cocktail party and tell you I am the best tax attorney you've ever met. Now, if you tell me how you got out of a sticky situation in a multi-million-dollar deal with whatever is going on in multiple countries and tax authorities, that to me is more impactful than you just telling me who you are.
Yeah, I really like this tactic. Identify your ideal customer profile, but do that in partnership, with teamwork, with your network of other folks that are tangential to your services. So if you're an attorney, talking to accountants and talking to financial advisors, talking to other folks that are out there just like you that have roughly the same ideal customer profile, and then asking your network, and this could be probably a dozen, half a dozen people. You don't have to make this a long drawn out survey of hundreds of people, but just have those discussions of, hey, where are you finding these people? What's important to them? What's their style? What keeps them up at night? And where are their pain points, particularly as it relates to, say, legal issues? Is there a common thread I could potentially pull on? What events do you find a lot of these people attend? I'll tell you what, Sheila, I found probably one of the best nonprofits I've ever worked through in their events that they put on. Fantastic events. And I had no idea they existed, but I reached out to somebody in my network and I was just having these conversations. I was telling them, I'm having a hard time just getting the events where there are decision makers. Do you know of any events that are? And he said, yeah, sure. Check out this nonprofit. They do. And I said, well, I've never heard of them. And so that was that. I think that's probably a good example of working with your network to identify ICP, how to reach them, how to engage them, and how to successfully prospect. Now, let's move to tactic number 2, if we can.
Okay. And this would be again, it's sort of a basic thing, but building and cultivating mutually beneficial strategic relationships with people. And that it's a long term, and that it's both business and personal. I mean, I've heard from so many buyers like myself where when things don't work out, you thought someone was developing a friendship with you to a certain extent, even though you knew there was a business aspect, but things change and then you're ghosted. And, this is a long career. People end up at new companies all the time. It's fascinating to me that people don't sort of take a long-term approach to developing these relationships and being there with people. I talk in the book, I think, about this one firm where there was a change in my management at the company I was at, and we changed who we were using. They stayed in touch. They were there for me. They did things for me because they saw things in the paper. And when I had the opportunity to go back to that firm, I did. And I ended up being probably one of their largest clients for a long time. And it all was because instead of saying, oh, we've been tossed aside because there's new management, they stayed in the game. They focused on what was important to me, both on a business and personal level. And showed me the value they could provide if I was able to go back to them, which I was, and they did.
So they essentially stayed in touch with you, even though you no longer used them at one point as a service provider.
For several years.
For several years, but yet they continued that relationship, providing value to you and not just being transactional, where it was one and done. We provided service. Okay, let's move on and find another prospect. No, they stayed with you and continue to provide value, correct?
Yes. And like I said, at the end of the day, I probably was their number 1 or number 2 client for several years afterwards.
I like that a lot because it shows that business development is not transactional. Effective business development is not transactional. So many people think that business development is sales. I say no. Business development is not sales. Sales is transactional by its nature. The definition of sales is to convert somebody from a prospect into a client as efficiently and as effectively as you can. That's a very unique skill set. People spend years perfecting their ability to be skilled salespeople. Business developers are there throughout the entire relationship. It's not one and done. It's not convert and go on to the next. Okay, that's what salespeople do. And some BD people do sales. That's fine. That's true. And some salespeople do business development. But true to its nature, business development is there throughout the entire customer journey, not through prospecting phase, not the activation phase, not just the conversion phase, but in customer success, customer growth. And Sheila, I like what you showed today, which is even after customer success, customer growth, and there was disengagement of the actual the relationship, the paid relationship, they continued to build value and that nurtured that relationship into something that was bigger and better. That investment for their time and efforts was massive compared to just the first initial engagement, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was incredibly different. And what I would say is I've heard this time and time again from end purchasers. Sometimes, you have to do good work. Let's put that, that's sort of table stakes. But the really having those ties with someone who's been in the trenches with you, that you've seen in other things, whether it's personal or business. I know one general counsel who was on a business trip with someone and some bad news hit. And that person, she said, went beyond everything. And she has worked with, and she was more junior in her career at the point. She wasn't a general counsel, and this woman was really fabulous to her. But she grew in the legal field as a general counsel, and she brought this woman along with her every step of the way. And a lot of it had to do with that personal relationship and that trust that was built when she had a bad day.
Wow. Fantastic. Okay. I love tactic number 2. These are fantastic. You're on a roll. Okay. Let's move right to tactic number 3.
Okay. This one might be a little bit lawyery, which is, remember, it's about the client or the end user. And I mean that because now and then as lawyers, we are so focused on our expertise. And I think this can be true of any technical expert. Now and then we love talking about ourselves, our expertise, the organization that we are at, and all the wonderful things they can do. That can be true. But unless you meet my needs as an end user, I am not going to purchase your services. So it's really getting a grasp on what their needs are, how they like to operate, and delivering on that in a really customer-centric approach that I think is so important. So a lot of times people come in with their script. And if the script is, I'm going to focus on the global nature of our M&A practice, and I'm a domestic company and we have no plans to go global, then you've wasted my time and I will not listen. And I think that I'm not that important if you're not focusing on me and what my needs are. And so to me, it's really understanding that it's about the customer, not your ego, not your resume, and not the organizations.
Yeah, I like that when so many folks go into a new relationship from their perspective and they're not being empathetic to the needs of the prospect or the customer. This continues post-conversion once you bring them on board, right, Sheila?
Right.
Yeah. They're not personalizing that engagement to the extrinsic needs and the intrinsic needs. And talk about the intrinsic needs. It's fundamental in understanding the purpose of your client or prospect. And, your intrinsic needs are the things that they don't talk about. And that's where the burden is on you as the business developer to find out, ask those questions so that you can learn what is truly important to them so that you can customize the engagement tailored to their personalized needs.
Especially like if you're involved in an RFP process or something like that, you really want to understand what's important to people. I often use the analogy, you don't want to be the perfume sprayer at the mall who, like, when people walk in and they're trying to buy a crock pot or a sweater or whatever it is, that you start getting spritz and they start trying to sell something that you have no interest in. People just turn off, they move around, they move away from you. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person who is so connected that they're like, wow, this person gets me and what I need.
Oh, this is gold right here, Sheila. I've seen this so many times. In the proposal writing process, folks just emphasize the extrinsic needs. This is what every competitor is responding to. Everybody sees these extrinsic requirements. They're written clearly in the solicitation. So you know, along with your competitors, exactly what the customer wants. The difference between an acceptable proposal and a winning proposal is understanding those intrinsic requirements, those intrinsic needs of your customer, where they do, as you said, Sheila, they sit back and they look at your proposal and go, wow, these folks really get us. And if you're really good at it, they'll probably get a little uncomfortable going, okay, where are the listening devices in our office? Because they know us way better than we do. And so let's just pull that a little bit more, because we have a few more minutes left here, but I'd like to just, this is so exciting. How do you advise your clients to get to those intrinsic needs where the prospect says, wow, they really get us? What is the tactic that you recommend?
It's really being curious and asking questions. And this, I give a list of questions in the book about things that you can ask, but it's following through and hearing the things also that aren't being said. What is going on at the organization? What are sort of the stressors? What do you mean? Is there a reorg going on? How is that impacting you? How is it impacting the business? Are there things I should be aware of that change? During the pandemic, I was talking to a general counsel of a major hotel chain, and she told me there were people who really listened to what was going on and worked with them to find alternative paths. And there were ones that said, no, we have to do things the way we've always done it for you. And she said, we never went back to those firms because they weren't with us and understanding how we needed to navigate the environment we were in. And now that we're out of that environment and we're doing well, those people who stuck with us and thought innovatively and differently about how we could partner together are the ones who are continuing to get the business.
Wow. Sheila, if folks want to connect with you, learn from you, follow you on social so they can learn how to get the business, how can they do that?
The best place is LinkedIn, Sheila Murphy /Focus Forward. And that is where I post a lot of content in terms of, hints of things that you can do. Also on my website, www.focus-forward-consulting.com, I have a lot of blogs and other resources available.
Well, listen, folks, if you want to get the business, try these top 3 tactics and takeaways from Sheila. Number 1 was ICP networking. This is working with your network of partners. If you're an attorney, partner with accountants, financial advisors, and folks that cater to the same type of clients that you do to learn exactly how those clients buy, how they learn, how they find you as a service provider. Second is BD is a full life cycle game. It does not stop at conversion, closed won. It does not stop at the sale. It continues through the customer success phase into the customer growth phase. And so many businesses are cyclical. Those relationships will come and go. They may no longer use you, but continuing to engage and nurture that relationship, even after they are no longer your customer, will bring them back for more of your services. And then the third and final tactic is be curious. Learn those intrinsic needs, those intrinsic requirements of your customers and your prospects so that you can Submit a winning bid that nobody else can write because you know exactly how that prospect is thinking. And then more importantly, in the follow through, continue that practice of those curious questions to learn how to deliver the most impactful, beneficial, and valuable service to your prospects so that at the end of the day, you demonstrate that you're an advocate for them and they end up becoming advocates for you and helping you grow your business. And if you want to grow your business, get a copy of Sheila's book. It's jam-packed with information. I really enjoyed reading it. It's fast-paced, it's actionable. Get it today. It's available on Amazon. It's Rainmaker Power Moves, the attorney's playbook for building a book of business, not just for rainmakers, though. In just the legal profession, rainmakers, and business developers across the board can find some great value in Sheila's book. Sheila, I want to thank you so much for everything you do for the legal profession and professionalizing business development, helping your clients succeed. And thank you for everything you do for the BD profession writ large.
And thank you for having me on, Tony. I really appreciate it and had a great time.
Thank you for listening to the Business Development Podcast. Join our free community of corporate partners and business development professionals advancing the art, science, and ethics of the business development profession at gbdassociation.org.